Right. Good afternoon, evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know, I'm Keith Schmitt. Connection to this building is I was the amphitheater manager for 40 seasons across the way. Flight time this evening, so you are aware, is going to be about 2 hours. It's a long trip. We are going all the way around the world. Shortest flight time on my adventure was 12 minutes, and the longest was 15 and a quarter hours. So won't be bad. Understand other folks may have things to do. Got to get up. Just keep your seatbelts fastened loosely. And when you get up, if you can avoid walking in front of the projectors, that would be great. And let's get started. I'm going to hide over here. And I'm doing this all on PowerPoint, which is a first for me because I'm usually the guy that says, what do you need to make this happen? So I would say hello to Zach in the back. He's going to be Dr. Zoom. With any luck, we might have a guest or two joining us along the way. So the title of the program is Motivations. And I think we can all agree the strongest motivator from doing travel is family. Whether it's a reunion or a union, or to say goodbye to somebody. This was a family reunion for my dad's 80th birthday. And family had a very important role to play in all of my travel. So I think it's important for you to meet my parents. Mom and dad. Dad's there in the center, Paul, and my mother, Dorothy. They're both born and raised in Wheeling, West Virginia. And all of their families came over in the 1860s and pretty much stayed there. Do have a very distant relative who fought in the Revolutionary War, so I can claim that. So my dad, his dad's name was Schmitt, and his mother's name was Baker. And my mother her father was a Schaefer, and mother was a Howley. So we've got mostly German with a good mix of Irish in there. The Schaefers had a bakery in Wheeling that lasted for 4 generations till the building got knocked down by a runaway bulldozer. So aside from family, I think another strong motivation for travel is inspiration. And this is my dad's sister, Mary Lou, and she was an airline stewardess for her entire career. She had a great route. She flew from, she did the Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. route. We grew up in Northern Virginia, and there were times where she didn't want to do the hotel. She would come stay with us just to family hang out. For me, it was amazing to hear some of the great stories she would tell about traveling to the Soviet Union or India. I was also like an 11 or 12-year-old boy, and I had a mad crush on her. Mary Lou. She's still a really avid traveler. We did a family trip to the Galapagos, traveled to the Amalfi Coast with her, and recently was at a wedding with my niece Emily. Here's a shocker. Me with a hair on my head, and 2 other people inspired me a lot for travel. In the middle is Arthur Perlstein, and on the right is my cousin Paul Baker. You might recognize the name Baker. He's not only my mother's sister's son, he is also the son of my father's cousin. Those 2 guys, this is us in the Dominican Republic in 1981. The next year, those 2 did some pretty crazy trips up the Amazon with some wild stories. Arthur also ended up teaching at a university in Ankara, where he met up with a Geordie by the name of Guy, who they traveled together for about 9 years, or 9 different countries all through Southeast Asia. Another big influence and inspiration is my niece's niece's husband, um, who's a David Schneer, who's a Foreign Service officer. They have traveled around the world, different postings. I keep missing them. It was 2 years behind them when they were posted to Peru, and then several years behind them when they went to the Philippines. This is Dave on a paramotor over central Laos. He has some great stories about hitchhiking along the west coast of Africa for a year. This is Paul McGinnis, a native of Wheeling, West Virginia. He joined the Navy at the age of 17 during World War II. He served aboard the Indianapolis and was one of the few people to survive. There was 1,195 people on that crew, and only 317 survived. He attributes his living to his age and the fact that as a signalman on that ship, they were granted permission to sleep on the deck since it was so nasty and hot below decks at night. And this is my mother's cousin, Rick Schaefer. She knew him as Ricky. He was drafted during the Vietnam War and was killed outside of Khao Lak in the Central Highlands of Vietnam in 1971. So I call that motivation for these two reverence. Another form of motivation is destination. This is Point Udall on the east coast of St. Croix. It delineates the easternmost part of the United States and its territories. And why that's important to me is because I've been fortunate enough to travel all 50 states. And so the next thing I want to do is start knocking off US territories. So I did Puerto Rico and St. Croix, and then started aiming at the Pacific. In 2024, I made it to American Samoa, so I was aiming at some more US territories. Another point of destination, it's motivated by these two gentlemen. On the left is Yannick Schergen. I knew him as the ballet master for the Washington Ballet. We worked together back in the late 70s, early 80s. And the gentleman on the right is choreographer Chusan Go, who was hired by the Washington Ballet in the early days. Mary Day had a school, the Washington Ballet, and she wanted to start a professional company. She hired Chusan to start developing choreography for the company. And I just happened to be at George Washington University and volunteered in the early days. And this is a picture of the Washington Ballet and their ballet called Fives, which is their signature piece. And way back when, I volunteered and worked on the world premiere of this piece. A year ago, the Kennedy Center hosted a festival called 10,000 Dreams, recognizing Asian choreographers. And Yannick ended up as working as the artistic director for the Singapore Ballet and was in Washington. I heard about the festival, flew down and with the hopes of meeting him. And I made a big mistake and we didn't cross paths. And I was very sad not to be able to meet him. So at that point I said, it's on me, I will come find you. And so I think the beginning of this adventure started with, at that moment when I started planning, looking at Singapore. So fast forward into the middle of January, and it took a while to put an itinerary together, but it came together. I started in Schenectady, flew to Honolulu, where I have friends. From there down to Guam, Saipan, Tinian, then on to the Philippines, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Bangkok, and Singapore, and then home the long way, heading west. So first day, Didn't start off so well. I was supposed to fly from Albany to Washington Dulles to catch a flight to Honolulu. Something really annoying like an oxygen mask deployed, which cost us going back to the gate, which cost us appointment at the de-icing tower, which caused me to miss my flight at Washington Dulles, and my 14-hour travel day turned into a 23-hour travel day. So I'm glad I got the bumpy part out first, but the restorative powers of Hawaii are pretty amazing. For two years in a row, I met up with my sister-in-law's brother's family, and that's Brett with the sunglasses, and on the left is his partner Daisy, and to the right is his mother June and Daisy's daughter Alicia. So that blur went away very quickly after spending a day with Brett touring around the north side of Oahu. And then there's always Waikiki Beach, which helps soothe the soul. This is a giant banyan tree right on the beach, and just listening to the birds chirp for a while is a great stress reliever. Yeah, you know, as is sunset. So there's going to be a lot of sunsets in this trip, but they're all pretty much medicinal. So the real work started the next morning. Early flight out of Honolulu, getting on board what we call the island hopper to Guam. I wanted to try to knock off at least one more territory while I was on this flight. It's a 15-hour day. It hops from Honolulu to Majuro, Kwajalein, Corse, Pohnpei, and then Chuck, and eventually onto Guam. They are in it's the Marshall Islands, so it's the Federation of the Marshall Islands in the Federated States of the Marianas. And then Kwajalein is, oddly enough, Kwajalein's all military. You can land, you're not allowed to take pictures or get off the plane, but the other ones you are. Actually, it was a good day. Got a nice omen from the sun, starting with Diamond Head back in the background. Here's a map of our flight for the day. So basically heading west. It sort of seems like we should be heading southwest, but it's pretty much due west on the way to Guam. First stop was Majuro. It's like most of the islands out there, they're just atolls. And they're all greeted with pretty much the same big piece of equipment to get people on and off. So a whole lot, makes a whole lot more sense than most of the stair units that you see on American flights. So hopping off and was able to do a thumbs up at the Marshall Islands, and then zip inside and to the terminal. And then interesting to see the woman with the headdress. Even as we moved across the different islands, the style of headdress would change. Unfortunately, that's the only photograph I've got of the headdress, so we can't just take my word in terms of the change. Then on to Guam. So this is us arriving on the southwest. Pretty much the main city is in the center on the west side of the island. Something that'll come into play a little bit later is on the very western tip there at the center of the island is another Point Udall. And I wanted to add that to my list of things to do because I wanted to bookend the entire territories in the United States. So I ended up in a small, fairly inexpensive hotel in Tamianing. The reason I did that was because right around the corner was a great deal on a rental car. I also found a great app that uses your phone and your GPS. Plug it in, and you can spend the whole day being guided by a voice on your phone. One of the first places we stopped was Two Lovers Point, on the sort of on the northwest coast. So in the Pacific, it seems that there's always a story about cliffs and people willing to jump off of them. So it's Two Lovers Point, and then we've got the view from Two Lovers Point, and water there is pretty spectacular. Making my way around the island, it's the first introduction to the theme of unexploded ordnance. Even to this day, they're finding bits and pieces underground, so you always want to stay on the trail. One of my places I want to go back to is the Rutidian Wildlife Refuge on the East Coast. It's pretty amazing. This is a view coming into it from above up on the hill. It's spectacular views. You can go right from the beach onto some really amazing trails, all sorts of critters. You can't see them in this picture, but there are just tons of black butterflies everywhere. Unfortunately, they're an invasive species, and they're eating all of the blue ones, but you know, I'm not sure what they're going to do to fix that. Here's an example of what a typical housing unit in this part of the world, and the house is founded on what are called latte stones. It's a unique shape. It ranges from being functional with the strange curve at the top, helps keep critters from coming up into the house. And they range in size from this to ornamental to just plain ridiculously huge in size. It's kind of like towers in Italy. Mine's bigger than yours. And then a very favorite spot of mine on the very south coast. And if you can read that backwards, you're doing better than me. In Valahan, it's gorgeous. Hardly anybody there. The tidal pools are just absolutely sparkling clear, and a great place for the locals to hang out. From Guam, it was a quick hop over to Saipan and Tinian. Fortunately, I had a night of insomnia, and I was able to find out about a great guide who does personalized tours of both Saipan and Tinian, and his name is Walt Goodridge, and met up with him at the airport in Saipan, and we were off for 2 days of adventure. First stop was a seafaring project that a gentleman by the name of Tyler was putting together. So in addition to building this hut with him and his volunteers, they were building by hand a replica of a Carolinian outrigger ship. So all of the rope, all the joining, all of the woodwork was done by hand. So from here, we spent the whole day touring around Saipan. It is just incredibly rich with information about World War II in particular. But also we had some really beautiful stops along the way. One of my favorites was this island, whose name I am forgetting right now. Come to me in a second. What is important about things like this is respect. I'm sorry, it's called the Forbidden Island, and for a reason. But what's always important in places like this is they usually have very deep cultural significance. So when it looks like something like, well, I can find my way down there and hop on across and take a look. Respect the local culture and ask. Um, Not really so much for permission, but just to respect their culture. And you also might find out that you don't want to go at certain times because might not be able to get back off the island. Quick ask here, Zach, if do we have not yet? Okay. Well, I'm going to jump out chronologically and I'm going to go to heading to Tinian with Walt. The only way you can get there, there's no ferry service. It's whoop, a 12-minute puddle jump from Saipan over. It gives a good look of what Saipan looks like from the air, and more importantly, what Tinian looks like from the air. Tinian was the largest airport in the world during World War II. Airport in the world during World War II. And what's interesting, it's in the shape that resembles Manhattan. So when the Corps of Engineers looked at it, the best way that they could think of to map it out and make it easy for everybody was to lay the streets out like Manhattan. So two of the big north-south streets are Broadway and 8th Avenue. And then 86 and another cross street. So got a good look here, exiting Saipan. And that airport is large enough for big aircraft. I flew in on a 737, but back in the day, there was a huge amount of traffic due to a fabric industry that existed because of a tax loophole. It was very bustling island economically. It's waned considerably, which means you can have less of the place to yourself. But we're not going to. We have well, okay. Just have them stand by because we're flying in the air right now, including the pilot 6. And the good thing about so how young the guy was who was flying the plane, a lot of these folks are pilots in training, and so they're racking their hours to eventually, hopefully, earn a commercial ticket and move up to regional and then the big airlines. It could be 20 years old. Felt comfortable to me. I was just happy it was easy. It was better than swimming. So we can see Tinian and the airfields coming into view. For years, it was almost impossible to see the runways. They've been working on clearing them. Currently, there's a $1 billion project going on to reuse these runways. You can see now the first runway on the right is runway Able. To the left of that is runway Baker, then runway Charlie, and so kind of hard to see, but to the left of that is runway Daw. And they haven't really cleared out the north-south routes yet, but the intention is to use this as a refueling site for U.S. aircraft to counter China's presence in the South Pacific. In very small, would make Jamestown look like an international airport. So let me just bump ahead here. We're going to move on. This is one of the slightly cleared roads, but what do we get? Hang on a second. I'm a newbie at that thing. Well, we'll just take a look and go forward. The interesting thing for me was to see the bomb pits. This is Tinian was where the Enola Gay and Boxcar took off from to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This is a good example of what the not lately cleared roads look like, and Walt had a good time driving down this one. We got to what was left of the area where they actually assembled the nuclear weapons, and then those weapons were taken to the bomb pits, not far from runway Able, and that's where both the Enola Gay and Boxcar took off from. This is Tinian, yeah. And the reason that they've got the pits is because the bombs were so big that they couldn't put a lifting device underneath them on the ground, so they had to put a hydraulic lift in the ground, and then that would raise it up into the bomb bay of the plane. And what was especially important for me is the connection to Paul McGinnis. I don't know how much history you know about the Indianapolis, but its last successful mission was the delivery of the nuclear components and uranium core of the Little Boy bomb before it went back to Guam and then sailed off into the Philippine Sea where it was sunk. Heading back to Saipan from Tinian, and we've got a pretty clear view of the runways. It was really amazing experience for me. Walt stopped the car and said, "You're driving." So I was able to drive the car down each one of these runways. And it's amazing. They're 15,000 feet long, and the plane still had trouble getting airborne. Pretty amazing. Anyway, back to Saipan. And this is one of the stops we made in the afternoon. It is the old Japanese jail. I made some amazing connections with Walt. We had a great conversation. We did an interview, which ended up making a couple of YouTubes for Walt. And there was I told a lot of Chautauqua stories because he was in the business back in the day, and he really enjoyed those. And he's actually going to join us now to share an interesting Chautauqua connection.
Hello. All right, Keith. Can you hear me okay?
You're doing good. Yep, we can hear you.
All right, great. How long are you giving me to wax historic?
Great. I showed them a picture of the old Japanese jail, so let's just take it from there.
Okay, so I'm sure you may have covered this before, but just in case, I'm on the island of Saipan right now. Saipan is part of something called the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. It's a 15-island chain that includes Saipan, Tinian, and Rota. Many people, myself included, I went to college in the States. I had no idea that this existed, that it was part of the United States, nor did I have any specific information on what the historical significance of Saipan and Tinian are. Since moving here in 2006, I've since learned quite a lot about the island, its indigenous culture, its pivotal role in ending the Pacific Theater War during World War II, and also the role Tinian played, as you probably mentioned, in dropping the uranium and plutonium bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end war in the Pacific. And one of the things that I also learned since I've been here is something that has intrigued many people since July 2nd, 1937. And yes, I am standing here in front of the old Japanese jail. And just so you know, Keith, it's still rainy season here. Rainy season here in the Western Pacific is from July to about September. So it did rain this morning and it looks like it's going to rain again. So I might have to move my setup inside. But one of the things I learned is something about Amelia Earhart. Now, for those of you who are familiar, you know that Amelia was an aviatrix in the 30s, and she attempted to fly around the world in 1937 around the equator. And despite what you've been led to believe, despite what you've been told, despite what you would like to believe, the story that you know about Amelia Earhart is completely and absolutely false. And I'm going to share with you now exactly what happened to Amelia Earhart. Now, back in 2017, the History Channel did a very good documentary on the lost evidence of Amelia Earhart, and that brought them here to Saipan. Unfortunately, that documentary, about an hour and a half documentary, was pulled because there was some factual errors in one of the um, pieces of evidence that they use to build their case. But you can still find it on Google Play. You might still be able to find it on YouTube and Vimeo. Some of us were fortunate enough to download it, right when it was released. But the story that you've heard about Amelia Earhart is that she left Papua New Guinea, New Guinea, on July 2nd, 1937, and she was never seen or heard from again. And that's the story that they're sticking to. However, those of us on this side of the world tell a completely different story. What happened was she, because of wind currents, her plane was off target, and she ended up having to crash land in on Endrican Island in Mili Atoll in the Marshall Islands. And the plane crash was actually, the landing was actually seen by individuals on the Marshall Islands. At that time, as Keith might have covered, these islands were all controlled by Japan at the time. So she ended up in Japanese custody. I'm giving you the short version. She ended up in Japanese custody. They brought her and Fred Noonan, her navigator, and the Lockheed Electra to Jaluit Island, and then from there to Saipan. They likely assumed she was a US spy because even though this was before World War II, Japan's influence was expanding and the US was monitoring and surveilling Japanese expansion in this area. So it was likely that they suspected that she and Fred were spies, and they imprisoned them, and Fred Noonan, was beheaded, and Amelia Earhart died of dysentery. And she died of dysentery in the old Japanese jail. And that's where we are right now. So I'm going to take you inside. But before I do, Keith, I know I've been rambling for a while. Do you have any questions to push me in the direction you'd like to go?
No, I think this just go for it.
All right, cool. So you are looking at the old Japanese jail. And if you are able to find that documentary, the Finding the Lost Evidence, it was put out by the History Channel on July 9th of 2017. You will see evidence from individuals who interacted with Amelia. You'll hear accounts from Marines who claim that they were tasked with digging up her bones here on Saipan. And you'll speak to other individuals who are absolutely certain that that was indeed her fate, that she ended up on Saipan in Japanese custody. Fred Noonan was beheaded because that's what the Japanese did to their prisoners of war. And Amelia died of dysentery. And in that documentary, you'll also see these particular cells. And it is believed, based on anecdotal accounts based on generational stories that she and Fred were likely in one of these two cells here in the old Japanese jail. So I suspect they may not have kept them right next to each other, but that's just my speculation. But Amelia ended up spending her last days here on Saipan, and that has been corroborated by military folks, that has been corroborated by people both on record and off record. It just has not made the mainstream in terms of people's acceptance of her fate. It's not the sort of fate that's filled with a lot of glory. It's not the sort of fate that people would like to see be the final chapter of Amelia, and that she ended up in a little known Pacific island and met her demise here. But that is the story that we here on this side of the world tell tell about Amelia, about the Caucasian woman and man who ended up in Japanese custody, the woman who most locals thought was a man because of her short hair and the fact that she dressed in pants and didn't resemble the typical female archetype that exists here on this side of the world. So that's, in a nutshell, the story that you are not hearing about Amelia Earhart. And if you'd like to come to Saipan and search for evidence yourself, you're more than welcome. And I can recommend a good guide for you. Are you guys fielding questions from the groups?
Actually, we're gonna need to move on. I run a little bit long here.
Okay.
Telling everybody.
Let me just add one thing. So the question that people probably have is, if the U.S. knew she was here, why didn't they rescue her? And the short answer is, at that time, they were surveilling the Japanese, and if they had revealed to the Japanese that they knew that the Japanese military had Amelia in their custody, it would have compromised the surveillance effort. It would have tipped the Japanese off that they had cracked the Japanese communication code. So essentially, Amelia was sacrificed for the needs of the few, were sacrificed for the needs of the many.
Awesome. Hey, I shared with everybody, we had a great interview and told a lot of Chautauqua stories together. Walt's channel is Discover Saipan. So on YouTube, don't miss it. And just a quick connection for you, Walt. When I told you the story about Mary Chapin Carpenter and the golden retriever.
Right.
Okay, well, you can't see him right now, but the woman that owned that dog, her name was Jenny. Her grandson Zach is here in the room running. He's my Dr. Zoom tonight, so he's the one that brought you in. So it's an amazing connection to make tonight.
Cool. Thanks.
Hey, thanks so much for being here, and I'm looking forward to going back to Saipan and bringing a lot of friends with me.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for having me. Glad I could help out.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. That's okay. Moving on. We got to get back to Guam, and hop, skip, and a jump because I had a layover in Guam long enough to make it to Point Orote Point, which is also Point Udall. I connected with the Navy. You can't get onto this this location because it's on a naval base. One of the employees came in on her day off, met me at a coffee shop, and got me to my destination. So I was able to bookend the territories of the United States. Then it was off to Manila. Quite a difference in activity level. I got introduced to a new type of rideshare in Southeast Asia called Grab, and these guys do an amazing job. So forget about taxis. Grab will get you where you need to go. I stayed at the Bayleaf Hotel down in Intramuros, which is the old city center in Manila. It was walking distance pretty much to anywhere I wanted to get to in town. So it was a little intimidating, go from the middle of nowhere to the middle of everything. But it was a beautiful walk. And by the time I met up with my tour guide, to do a walking tour of Intramuros, I felt very, very comfortable and very much at home. This is my tour guide with a very hard to pronounce Filipino name, Floyd. We got to be good chums while we're waiting for the rest of our tour, which was a newlywed couple, to join us. So we hung out and watched school kids do their thing across the street. And then in the meantime, Floyd invited me to join his walking tour of the night market, and it was a foodie tour, which he said would be fine. Just don't, I would have to step out of the pictures that he took for the company, so he wouldn't get in trouble for having me along. Had a great time, and this is the bucking of the walled city of Intramuros, which means between the walls, literally in Spanish. Great walking tour. Finally met up with the newlywed couple, chatted this guy up. I always keep my radar on because you never know who you're going to run into. Turns out Sam was a 2017 graduate of Fredonia State. Think, what are the chances? Well, stick around. That evening, I got a taste of what Manila traffic looks like on the way to the night market. It was very exciting because the Chinese New Year was just about to happen, so there was all sorts of activities going on, of fire breathers, tons of fun. From there, we joined the night market, and it was just nonstop activity. It starts at 6 o'clock in the evening, runs till 6 o'clock in the morning. The food is just absolutely amazing. I never had a problem with anything that I ate the whole time I was on the trip. I think I was healthier when I was out on the road. Again, just tons of activity. And this is pretty much an example of the kind of activity you would see. One side of the road they referred to as being wholesale, the other side was retail. So this guy was I think just coming from obviously from the wholesale side. Supposed to have a video here. There's the video. Gives you a really good sense of what the traffic was like. We rode just about every kind of vehicle we could. We were in jeepneys and overgrown tuk-tuks, and at one point, Floyd jumped out, ran and got us all beer, and before long, we were all singing together, driving in the tuk-tuk together. It was quite a night. So if you're looking for some fun, don't miss the night market in Manila. I don't think there's another one there. Well, if there is one, it's got to be a big one. Oh, there. After the craziness of the night market, it was a much more chill experience to hang out on the river, and then close the evening out by having some fun at the arcade. Next morning, I hopped a bus to the north of Luzon to a town called Baguio. I had been, the algorithms of Facebook figured out that I wanted to go somewhere in the Philippines, so they kept sending me reels of traditional dancers. So I chose, I got a DM back from the folks that were managing the page with the reels, and said, you should come to Baguio. There's a flower festival. You don't want to miss it. So hopped on the bus. It took an hour just to get out of Manila, and that's gives you an idea of how huge Manila is. Anybody have an idea of what the population is? It's some 5 million or more. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, back up. Out in the countryside, our goal is off in the distance. Lots of smog in the area this time of the season. It's just before planting. So throughout Southeast Asia, rather than plowing crops down, they tend to burn them. This is the approach into Baguio. It was up in the mountains, just really, really gorgeous. Very laid back city with a beautiful lake in the center, people riding boats on their leisure. And what I thought was kind of an interesting thing, driving around on these crazy little carts with umbrellas. You see they were getting ready for the the flower festival, and they're weaving together things, and it was you just sort of felt the same kind of energy pre-season at the end. Part of the flower festival is a huge landscaping competition they have. There were probably 20 different landscaping arrangements like this that were being judged. The whole flower festival kicked off with a huge parade. So many people in it that I couldn't imagine where the viewers were, or spectators were coming from. For everything from chefs to the the local politicos, everybody wearing flower themed costumes, just joining along. This is one of the traditional dance companies that basically danced their way the entire route of the parade. There were a number of grade school aged lyre and drum bands. And you can see that these guys have their keyed instruments all put together, and with the dads helping them. They've obviously done this parade a number of times so they can play while they're wheeling down the street. Same thing with the drums. There's a good shot of all the keyed instruments all lashed together on wheels going down the road. Again, it's more this an adult group of drummers. I wasn't sure of the parade route, so I followed these guys to the exit. Discovered that everybody was parading in front of a review stand at the end of the parade, and there was a competition. There were 5 different grade schools that got involved in a competition of the lyre and drum bands, and then when they at the end, they all got together, parked their instruments, and performed a peace dance. Which was and then it was picture taking time. Every group got together and did pictures, and it was just really magic. So and in addition to the flower festival, there's just so much to do. I can't wait to go back, and I will be heading back soon. From there, it was back to Manila, and then a short hop to catch a flight at via Bangkok. So if you want to get your steps in, Bangkok Airport's the place to go. Talking about keeping your radar on, you never know who you're going to run into. I was in a small terminal waiting for my flight to Laos, and who walks up? It's somebody wearing a 10,000 Maniacs t-shirt. It turns out he lived in Jamestown around the same time I did. He knew everybody I knew. Somehow I didn't know Mike, but talked to the band, and they knew Mike. Pretty cool. So next stop was flying into Vientiane, Laos. And I was met by one of my best tour guides ever. This is Noi. He's from a small village outside of Vientiane, outside of Luang Prabang, up in the north part of the country. So here's a map of what our tour is going to look like. It was I think this was 11 days. So we started in Vientiane one night, then over to Kong Lor, which was a really spectacular place. Then back to Vientiane for a night, up to Bang Vieng, Backpacker's Paradise, and then on to Luang Prabang. Along the way to Kong Lor, stopping many stupas and temples, just one more ornate than the other. I can't remember all of the names, but they're just absolutely spectacular. Reminder, before you ever leave home heading to Southeast Asia, make sure you take clean socks with you, because you're forever taking your shoes off to go into the temples. And then seeing one of many reclining Buddhas that we'll see along the way. This is heading east towards Kong Lor, and you can see that the the landscape changed very quickly. These are all karsts, limestone formations. The roads started getting interesting. You know, watching out for water buffalo. And then we arrived at Spring River Resort, which is about as secluded as it can get. This is the boardwalk to get back to the resort. And then an example of kind of what the bungalows look like. Um, right on the river, just a really gorgeous view. This is near the restaurant area, so you could actually have your meals facing the river. And this is the river. It's actually going to flow into a cave that we're going to visit shortly. And just take a look at the boat. That's pretty much what the standard boats look like that are driving people around on the rivers in this area. And this is the view across from where I was having all of my meals. And this is a typical breakfast, which I sorely miss. And the fresh fruits were just absolutely amazing, as was the coffee and the juices. And the evening meals, no different, super yummy. And this is Noi. We're on our way into the cave. It's and in the cave is an underground river. It's about 3/4 of a kilometer long, and that's the entrance into the cave. You can see we had headlamps. I travel with headlamps. Why I didn't bring mine from my bag is who knows. The headlamps were the old incandescent type, but the LEDs. Take a headlamp. Further inside the entrance, you know, idea of, again, the size of the boats that we're using. These were, I think, just out of service without the motors. And then felt like it was going into we were in a cavern with limestone formations, stalactites, stalagmites. So there was a fair amount of walking in addition to just getting in and out of the boats. And then here's a video of us exiting the cave.
Edit.
It's a beautiful thing. These caves, it's also sad to know that what they were used for during the Vietnam era, when so many of the locals would have to seek refuge in these caves because of the bombing that was going on by the United States. And that became really hit home when I visited this museum called COPE in Vientiane. And it was all about an organization that helped people with mobility issues, and most of those mobility issues were caused by injuries by unexploded ordnance. This is a map of the bombing that happened between 65 and 75 in Laos. 2 million tons of bombs were dropped on the country, and very little of it was for political effect. It was all trying to take out the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and so much of it today remains a problem. This is a display of what one cluster bomb looked like with 200 bomblets inside. These typically were only 90% effective, so 10% of the ordnance still intact, causing death and injury by farmers tilling the land, or children picking up bomblets thinking they're toys, or folks actually trying to scrap salvage metal to try to make some money. And an equally sad exhibit was of all of these prosthetics that were created to help people that had been injured. And the very sad thing was that a lot of museums and places that I visited like this, they were proud to display that they were funded in part by USAID, which isn't happening anymore. Next, from Vientiane, we headed on up to Bang Vieng, which is basically backpackers central. As soon as I got there, I was excited to hike out in search of what I call sunset rush hour. See, the activity gets pretty busy right at sunset, and that bridge took me out to where the balloons and paramotors were launching from. So the sky and the river got very busy right at sunset. About the same time as I was in town, my high school classmates were meeting at an Irish pub back in Northern Virginia, and so I had to find one and offer a toast. Gary's was a very respectable pint of Guinness, so I was happy to share. We did some traveling out and about, lots of Chinese tourists. So there were huge water parks with tubing on rivers and caving and trekking, four-wheel drive vehicles. I opted for a couple of chill days. I spent the afternoon after doing some shopping, about an hour at this Buddhist temple not far from my hotel. And then I think I was treated to karma because I sat on the porch of my hotel and this happened. I didn't go looking for it. I sat still and the magic just happened. Next stop was to hop on the high-speed rail. Road system is really bad as you get into the north of Laos. It would take a full day to go from Bang Vieng to Luang Prabang. This huge train, it's 18 cars long. It felt like I was walking at the airport to go from the entrance to the car we were riding in. And I was a bit disappointed. I was looking forward to seeing the Lao countryside. 75% of the rail line was in caves or in tunnels on the way to Luang Prabang. And a train station in Luang Prabang echoed the architecture of the area. This is a temple we visited that afternoon. The architecture is just stunning. Beautiful temples. Again, so many that I can't keep the name straight. Buddhas everywhere. Got back to the hotel. This is probably one of the more bougie places I stayed, and I can't think of the name of it right now. But they spelled out the welcome home in twigs. It was really sweet. One of the best meals that I had was in the restaurant attached, complete with like lily ponds, the whole 9 yards. Awesome food, but I was still a big favorite of street food, and the coconut pancakes were at the night market were pretty amazing. And along, you didn't want to let yourself get distracted by the night market too much because there was, especially around 6 o'clock in the evening, it was prayer time. So again, as long as you're respectful, taking your shoes off, they don't mind sharing the moment with you. I think my favorite stop in Laos was an elephant refuge. these are elephants that were rescued from the timber industry. Um, they are not for riding. I was very clear with Noe that I did not want to go anywhere around an elephant, but not on top. Um, we got the opportunity to feed them. Um, just really wonderful animals. My favorite was actually listening to um, play that again because it's really short. It's just the end of their trunk is wet, and it's just a really cool thing to hear and feel that. It's just amazing. Um, I opted for the opportunity to help give an elephant a bath, which was pretty much like trying to paint a wall with a toothbrush, but just the experience of getting up close an animal like this was amazing. There was the group wasn't large. There were two couples that were French, didn't speak any English. They understood I had some difficulty walking, got down to the bottom to get into the water, trying to take my shoes off. Next thing I know, somebody's grabbing me around my chest, and the other guy's taking my shoes and socks off for me because had no place to sit down. And then they got me out onto to a chunk of concrete that was in the water, and I was able to help give a bath, a little scrub time, little water time, and a little bit of love time where I made some really wonderful eye contact with the elephant. And at the end, the trick was they gave the elephant a command to squirt water on the two people that were bathing the elephant. I think I had a good relationship with this one. The other guy that was doing the bathing, not so much. He got doused pretty hard. So from Luang Prabang, it was time to head to Cambodia. It's a flight on Vietnam Airlines. We flew out of one more quick view of taking a look at Luang Prabang from the air as we headed. And at the top was the river. That's the Mekong, right at the beginning of the headwaters there. After a 45-minute bus ride from the Siem Reap airport, which is way up in the countryside, I grabbed a tuk-tuk to meet up with my buddies Arthur and Guy. Guy, this is now we're in Siem Reap, which is a very, very big tourist center. Angkor Wat, or Angkor, which is the whole complex of Angkor Wat, is just north of Siem Reap. Guy was just coming in from Thailand. He was working his way, hanging out on some of the islands there, and Arthur's finishing up his career as an attorney for the government and enjoying the unexpected buyout period, so he was able to join us. Party time is on Pub Street, loud and just crazy. Us old timers were happy to find an Irish dive bar where we spent a few evenings. First adventure for us was to head out to Tonle Sap, which is the huge lake that's just south of Siem Reap. This is very much what it feels like in a lot of Southeast Asia, clay roads, and that time of year very dusty. We took a boat ride out from this village. It's basically a community now that does nothing but they're operating boats from this stilted village that lives along the river on the way out to the lake. But it is dry season, so you can see from how tall these stilted houses are, how dramatically the water level changes over over the seasons. We made our way out to basically a floating restaurant in the middle of the lake to enjoy the sunset along with everyone else. Fun silhouette, and if you saw some of my photographs out in the lobby area, that's the feeling of the evening. We found out that our boat had to run a different mission, so we ended up with a new skipper on a different boat. She got us back home okay, in time for us to make it to the ticket office for Angkor the next morning. This is a picture of the Angkor area. It was the capital of the Khmer Empire. And you can get an idea how huge this is. I think for me, it felt like it was about 4 times the size of the mall in Washington. Bring water, good shoes, because you're going to have a lot of walking. This is the beginning of the walk to Angkor Wat, which is the largest and most impressive of the temples. When we got to this first gate, we thought we were there. It was only halfway. And then it was probably another kilometer to the main entrance. And it is stunning. Steps and steps and steps. I'm glad I got my health issues sorted out, because I never would have made it too far in this temple. But it's just amazing and beautiful. And the steps I'm talking about, they are actually steeper than that, at least when you're walking up and down them. This is a view from the top of the temple looking back at the path that we took to get there. And if you see what looks like a small tower at the end of the long walkway, that's the halfway point. So you've got a long walk. And the temple is still active. We came across a couple of prayer sessions going on. And then it was back down the stairs. And this is one of the few places that actually has railing, because the big challenge for a lot of the walking and touring around the temples is a serious lack of railings. We went up to the Banyan Temple. This is the one that, if you, I think, from Indiana Jones, you'll recognize that. And this guy doing an uncharacteristic. Sorry? Tomb Raider, there we go. Example of railingless stairs, but just amazing architecture, and stone carving that you can just get up close and personal to. And as they say, every picture tells a story. And then we headed out, I think this was the East Gate, on our way back to do a little bit of R&R. I don't remember too many hotel rooms with 3 big beds in them, but worked out well for us. And literally it was recharge time. The next day was kind of a kickback day. I ended up going to a place called the Apapo Center, and it's all about a new way of demining the countryside. Typically, it would be humans using metal detectors. What they've done now is they've trained giant pouch rats from Tanzania with incredible senses of smell to sniff out explosive material. So there's this little demonstration of how they do this. They smell the material, scratch the ground, click, get a reward, get turned around, go back, hit on it again to confirm and then get another reward. What's amazing about this is they haven't lost a rat yet. They call them hero rats. 2 weeks before this demonstration, two technicians were basically vaporized when they were trying to remove a landmine. They thought it was an anti-tank mine. It was booby trapped with an anti-personnel mine, and unfortunately for them, the rats were around. And just recently, on World Rat Day, I think it was a couple of months ago, Rat Ronin broke the world's record for having discovered the largest number of pieces of unexploded ordnance at 124. And at the end of the tour, we all get to hold a giant rat, and this is Rat Lily. So the next day, we were headed to, we are right now, and we're about to hop on a bus to go to Sihanoukville, which is on the coast, which is starting to look a lot like Miami with all the towers and stuff, to take a ferry boat out to a small island called Koh Rong. Arthur was in charge of getting tickets, and he made a little boo-boo. And we ended up having to wait 4.5 hours to get the next bus because the tickets we had were basically for the next day. Guy is quite the raconteur and songster who is happy to sing for beer and food in whatever bar he can find himself in. And so what do they say? Make when you get thrown lemons, make lemonade. So interesting timing with last night's blues. Guy just whipped up a blues song.
Small. While I'm stuck in Seattle, up this morning. While I'm stuck in Seattle.
The employees thought this was pretty cool, but the other folks coming in the waiting room were like, they weren't quite sure. I'm stuck in Seattle. So Guy's Blues didn't last too long. We finally made it after we hung out, and we did a one night in Sihanoukville, and then we got the ferry and on to Koh Rong. This was the other side of the island, which was just a amazing strip of restaurants and fresh food that you just pick out what you want and get it grilled for you. We were staying on the other side of the island in bungalows like this. The first time on the trip that I needed to use mosquito netting, and that didn't help very well. It helped once we were sleeping, but we got pretty much chowed on the rest of the time. We were very close to the ferry boat landing, so it was always fun to watch the comings and goings while enjoying the beach. I did actually, again, with my radar on, I spied a Buffalo Bills shirt. So I got yelled out, "Go Bills," and found out that the young man I was talking to was from Amherst. Keep your radar on. My favorite spot was sort of a community-made mangrove facility, and with just some beautiful walks off into the mangrove. And I like this one where they were actually cutting the boards to fit around the mangrove so they could do their thing. As we talked about, food is pretty amazing. This was a spot, the Barracuda restaurant was a spot that Arthur really wanted to go to, and it was fortuitous because the owner was from Ankara, where Ankara, Turkey, where Arthur and Guy had first met. So it made for a very, very interesting conversation. I had to go, I was on my way to Vietnam. I went back, spent a night in Sihanoukville, took to the airport. Just a quick note about the plane. This reminded me very much of the 737 I flew going into Nome, Alaska. The front of the plane was all freight, and the back of the plane was for the passengers. Got into Saigon or Hanoi, whichever one you prefer. This is a map of the tour that I took with Straight Travel, again with the same company that I used in Laos. So we're going to start in Ho Chi Minh City. From there, it was a night train up to Bai Zep, which is a small fishing village, and then we're going to van up to Hoi An and Hue, and then it was another overnight train to Hanoi, and then Halong Bay. It took a bit to get used to the traffic again from the countryside. What? Hey, come back here. I went from Sihanoukville, Cambodia to Saigon, and this was the traffic. And I thought the music was perfect because on this grab ride, because there's not a manic kind of. It's just we're all in this together. We're going to take it slow and just flow. Crazy, very dense traffic, but just kind of a cool vibe. And then I met up with a surprisingly small tour group. There were 3 of us all together. It was so Louisa, she's from Germany, celebrating just finishing her master's and touring around on her way to be an au pair in Melbourne and visit her grandmother in Tasmania. And this is one of the best tour guides ever, Tang. So the next day from Saigon, we headed up to toured the Coochie tunnels outside of Saigon, and again, war rears its ugly head. This was a facility where folks were creating artwork using eggshells and mother of pearl, but sadly, the whole enterprise was to benefit people who were suffering from Agent Orange. A lot of people don't know, but I mean, it was the original effects, but there to this day, there are generations below the folks that were initially exposed to it that are having genetic issues. And you remember Chris, you remember Curtis Burris, not Curtis Burris, Curtis Walker? Yeah, he was convinced that his father was exposed to Agent Orange and significantly in Vietnam, and he was convinced that his cancer came from that. Then we visited the Coochie tunnels. A little too commercial for my liking, especially when you could hear gunfire in the background. It was kind of a Las Vegas show where you could pay money to fire any kind of Vietnam War weapons. There was also the ability to climb through the Coochie tunnels. Obviously, the frame of Vietnamese in that era was much smaller than myself, so I was happy to post for a picture, but I wasn't going to go any further. So it was back to Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon. This is the interior of the post office that was built in the late 19th century. Sorry, I can't remember the name of the architect. It may have been, well, I'm not gonna, I have to double check that. What's amazing though was the original phone booth celebrating the telegraph and the telephone, and now everybody's sitting on benches outside the telephone booths on their phone. The other thing about this post office is one of the few places in the city where you can buy postage stamps. One of my favorite views, a lot of the Vietnamese cities have what's called Book Street. So this is a strip of bookstores, and this is looking towards the cathedral in downtown Saigon. a place that you can definitely spend the day is the War Remnants Museum, which is all about the Vietnam era war. Um, an amazing, what is it, John Meacham says, paraphrasing Mark Twain, history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. And I noticed a rhyme as I walked into one of the first displays, and it was a letter by President Eisenhower talking about the need to maintain a presence in Vietnam because of the importance of raw materials and different minerals specific to the military needs. And this was the same time that well, a certain president was hassling another certain president about mineral rights in this country. That night, we hopped on the Saigon Express to take the train to the fishing village, Vizep. It was very much like camping. Basically, sat and chatted. It was a 6.5 hour train ride. Got us into Vizep early in the morning and headed off to the fishing village, which was a very traditional fishing village that still used the round boats. And I was always kind of curious to how they made those go. And it wasn't, you don't paddle from the side, you sort of do a motion like that in the back, and they do just fine. Great view from the hotel from above. And then a quick walk through the village, very narrow streets. You have to make sure you're listening, because motor scooters will come drive down there while you're trying to walk through the different shops. This is the community well. See a number of different pumps and hoses running to all the different neighbors in the area. And then seaweed cakes, actually pretty tasty. I did this with my dinner. And then the restaurants would display all of their fresh fish on the beach, and basically you would pick what you wanted to have for dinner, and can't get much fresher than that. It was actually a circulation system. They had with hoses and pumps to keep the water fresh for the critters living in there. Always enjoyed doing what the locals do. We did a hike across the road up into the hillside, and this is where a lot of the locals were spending their time. This led us up to a waterfalls where we just enjoyed each other's company for a couple of hours. And that first photograph of Louisa and Tang sitting together was taken here, and there's a view of from above. It was now on to Hoi An, which is a port city, but now is very heavily touristed, but just a lovely place to be. Great food, great people, and a crossroads of cultures. We went to a small theater to enjoy traditional Vietnamese dance. The Chinese influences strongly felt, as is the Japanese influences. It's called the Japanese Covered Bridge, along with a beautiful interior and Japanese shrine. It was also a crossroads for a high school classmate of mine. I was traveling south to north, and he was traveling north to south. So we managed to get together in Hoi An for a beer and then have dinner together. So let's see what's on next. Like many villages in Southeast Asia, they're all known for something. This village was known because of the clay deposits on the shores of the river for its pottery. So it was still to this day making pottery for the community, but it was also created art. And there was a museum of brick and clay where they did miniatures. This is the Statue of Liberty. If you look in the background, you can see the US Capitol. And then that was also St. Peter's. From Hoi An, it was a ride up to Hue, and where we spent an afternoon on the back of motor scooters. I love that was my view for most of the day. Take it easy, feel breezy. And we again visited another village shop. Another village was known for its incense. In addition to being a tour stop, there, with all of the temples, there is a need for a lot of incense. We actually had a chance to watch incense being made. If anybody burns incense, I've got a table of a whole lot of stuff that I brought back with me from my trip, and there's incense from this village. Take whatever you want. Please enjoy it. Favorite moment? Actually, she's going to show us.
Yeah,
making
making the solid.
So it's sawdust
And
and the base of the incense being rolled together.
the wood powder we got from cutting timber, like we're gonna go to here.
Right, and then another favorite moment was me getting a video of Louisa riding into the traffic circle. Don't ever send these things to your mother while you're on trip. Okay, from there it was on to the forbidden city of Hue, the ancient capital of Vietnam. Absolutely beautiful. After a while, you just sort of get overwhelmed by all of the detail and the architecture. Then to the main palace. And I think this was one of Noy's favorite spots because he actually asked me to take a picture for him. And some incredible detail in front of that palace. Next stop was the night train to Hanoi. So this is the railway station in Hue. This time it was going to be an 8-hour train ride. So we made sure to bring cards. We played cards until we all got very sleepy because it's very hard to sleep on a bed that's about 2 feet wide and a cushion that's as thick as your hand. Arrived in Hanoi in the morning. It felt like you were in a northern city. It felt a little bit of a New York edge to it with the traffic and everything. But first thing first, breakfast. And it was we scurried inside this little very narrow doorway, which led us into a very lovely sort of French influenced courtyard for one of the best breakfasts I think I've ever had. That's like the best French toast. I can taste it still. Yep. And then we did some touring around town, but then from there it was off to the harbor to catch. Actually, it was a drive up to Halong Bay. It's about an hour away, and then caught a ferry, and then onto our boat where we spent the night. Each of these boats had about, I'd say, 30 cabins with amazing dining room, great staff, and just wonderful views. Our boat took us further into the bay, so we were totally isolated and just absolutely quiet. Took a boat ride into the grottos in the area. My favorite time was just nighttime and seeing the light dome of Halong City in the background and the light from the boat into the water. I was back to Hanoi. we just happened to time it with a huge festival that was going on that weekend. It was celebrating the 50th anniversary of the public services of Vietnam, fire, police, some of the military, emergency services, but just a great family feel. There was also a huge stage celebration going on. So they had a giant stage built. We were there to watch the rehearsals that afternoon. Excuse me. And then we come back to that later. But then I was off to dinner at Huang Lian. I don't know if anybody remembers this restaurant. It was very famous, had a very famous couple of patrons. Barack Obama and Anthony Bourdain had dinner here. There was a museum, or not a museum, a menu item called the Obama. So I had exactly what he had for dinner. I wasn't ready to go where Anthony Bourdain was, but it was fun. And then it was back to to watch the concert that evening. It was fun just to see it in rehearsal and then actually to see the performance. I left the tour there, and then from there headed to Canton, which is probably about 70 miles southeast of Ho Chi Minh City. Amazing vibe. It's got a really great riverfront with it's a very welcoming waterfront bridge. Lots the demographic skews very young, so just lots of kids doing live music along the riverfront as well. I didn't have much time, so the next morning, the next day it was my flight to Bangkok. So I did a sunrise tour. This is my guide Thomas and the skipper of our boat, Mrs. Tien. You see the concrete ramp there. It's nice. It looks nice and easy to navigate this time of day. When Thomas met me outside of my hotel, we had to walk about a half kilometer to this place, and it was pitch dark. We were using our phones to see to get there, but it was worth it. It was one of the best sunrises to do a sunrise tour on our way to see the floating market. This is Mrs. Tien backlit with the sunrise, and it was. You think you've seen some pretty amazing things, and that was blew my mind. And then it was off to the floating market, which still exists. Rather than signs saying this is what we have for sale here, you stick whatever item it is you have on your boat on the post. And so this one was laden with melons. Who knows what else is, and that's how you find out what's on the other boat. So zipping by, and these folks live on their boats. You can see they've got the laundry hanging out, and I don't know if it's this one, but the folks actually had a couple of dogs living with them. And just, it's like you're driving through the shopping center. So you've got wholesale, and then you have folks that want to come to you and do retail. So we had folks bring us drinks, and in between the big boats with and there were boats even more heavily laden than this along the river. And then Ms. Tien nestled up into the floating restaurant. So we had lovely pho for breakfast. And then my favorite part of the trip was going back into the canals and visiting a local village where Thomas said that I was the only person on the trip. He said, normally I wouldn't do this but just because it's you, I'm going to take you to this village. Don't mind if folks are looking at you strangely, because I don't think a tourist has been back here in a very long time. And as we saw earlier, some villages, make pottery, some villages make incense. This village takes orders from local farmers for seedlings by the hundreds and by the thousands. So there's a process to making these seedlings, and the first step is making the little pot that the seedlings go into, and these women are rolling these leaves together and pinning them with a toothpick. that will later be filled with soil. And then the seeds put in to make the seedlings. Speakers everywhere. So then Thomas took me through, this is what the women were making. And then into the village to see how the seedlings were progressing. So these are some of the folks' properties where there's just tables or flat surfaces that are just covered with the little pots. And here's what the seedlings looks like. And more places where the seedlings are being grown. And then this is a seedling that's ripe and ready for the farmers to collect. This is a quick view of how the seedlings or the little pots get covered with soil. Basically, you have a tray you fill full of the little pots, and then there's bags of potting soil. Basically, pour the soil over, flatten it out, and then you're ready to go. So then eventually it ends up with these trays being ready to be harvested, packed up, and given to the farmers to take them on to the farms. And then I did a little touristy shot, and Jen gave me your hat, and actually Thomas gave me his hat and took the shot. And then I was on my way to the airport to head to Bangkok. So this is sort of from Hanoi, yeah. And then from it was just sort of like the end of feeling connected to the earth and all of the nature going away, but now being represented by architecture. So this is the inside of the Bangkok airport that gives you an interesting feel as a kind of a merger of both. And then on to Bangkok, which was very, very different from my experiences in Vietnam. I can't remember the name of the neighborhood that I was staying in. It was to the east of the central business district, but it was recommended me by a friend of mine from the theater department in the GW days lives in Chiang Mai with his husband. They visit Bangkok very often, and highly recommended this neighborhood, and it was perfect for me. Great public transportation, and really enjoyed public transportation there. Actually, you just swipe your credit card to go through the turnstiles. No buying, tokens or fare cards. You just go. And my favorite thing about the whole system is no advertising, just positive vibes and positive messages on the walls of the subway. From here, it was pretty much on to big buildings. The Mahanakan is an 80-story building in Bangkok, and it's the home of the Skyway or the Skywalk. It's a glass floor that you walk out onto if you're courageous, looking straight down, and everybody sort of has a different reaction. The fun part about this is there's stadium seating, so you can watch all your friends from up looking down, and it's quite the party. It even comes with a DJ. So then it was off to see temples in the evening. This is, I believe, Wat Po, which is the home to the reclining Buddha. This is the oldest temple in Bangkok. They built the Buddha first and built the temple over top of the Buddha. And just amazing architecture. Gorgeous. I did another off the beaten path trip, a canal tour, and ended up there's an artist village on this dock that stretched for a couple hundred meters. And again, a reminder to wear clean socks. You're always asked to have your shoes taken off. We also ended up at Wat Phak Nam, which is an 8-acre facility that is home to the giant Buddha. Giant Buddha's got a different attire on now, that little construction going on. But for me, what was interesting was the, whoops, back up one here. The stupa that was right behind it, which is fairly modern, and the stupa inside is a 24-foot tall structure of glass, and the light and detail in the room was just absolutely stunning. And I think this is a woman taking a picture of her dad praying. And again, everything very, very accessible. As long as you're respectful, no shoes, you can pretty much go anywhere you want. Just to give you an idea of the level of detail of this space. From here, it was quite a contrast. I ended up taking water taxi to Asiatique, which is a repurposed warehouse district with all kinds of shops and big Ferris wheel, and home to a Ladyboy show. So if you're going to be in Bangkok, you've got to check out a Ladyboy show. Just a lot of fun. From there, the next day it was on to Singapore, where I loved the plane I was on, because the forward-looking camera. So this was a photograph of the TV screen on the seat in front, of the back of the seat in front of me, and you can see that Singapore is still very much lots of commerce going on, with all these ships waiting to load or unload. Lovely drive from the airport. The airport road was lined by, I think these are rain trees and whatever the shrubberies are, for a solid mile. It was absolutely beautiful. Bougainvillea, thank you. And then from there, it was the skyline of Singapore soon became apparent. Just squeaky clean city, easily walkable, great common spaces. There's a waterfront area down by the Esplanade, and then some amazing architecture to take in. And then there was my favorite thing to do was check out a couple of museums. One of the most interesting ones for me was the Red Dot Design Museum. Again, just not a very, very close to all the architecture that we just witnessed. Interesting for me was this was a design suggestion put together by a student from the Savannah College of Art and Design, where I was going to be, that I visited 2 weeks from, not even 2 weeks from seeing this in the museum. And then the stunner was the Asian Civilization Museum. These pictures of the pagodas. There was a collection of these pagodas that were handmade by orphans at an orphanage that ended up being dispersed. They were shown at a World's Fair, and then they were dispersed to the world and somehow recollected and all together to be seen in this museum. The other very fortuitous thing was running into a St. Patrick's Day celebration not far from here. And again, very respectable pints of Guinness being poured, and lots of good cheer. And unlike a lot of crazy St. Patrick's Day party, this just had a really, really wonderful feel to it. And then what drove me to do this trip from the very beginning was my connection with Yannick Schergen and Chu Sang-go. And it just so happened that the Singapore Ballet was in performance at the Esplanade, and I was able to see Chu Sang-go's full-length ballet that he choreographed for the Boston Ballet. And again, this whole echo of nature and the architecture, walking to my seat and then having the good fortune of being able to sit down and watch the performance. And then on St. Patrick's Day itself, I was able to make my way to the Singapore Ballet Studios. They were in a huge building. These were on the 7th floor of a commercial building with offices below. Beautiful studios, beautiful offices, and the Chusan Go studio that was named in his honor, and then able to meet up with Yannick. I had hoped to have him zoom in, but wasn't able to make it. Oh, okay. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning, Singapore time, so we were fortunate that we were able to get Walt in when we did. And then that was pretty much the as far as I was concerned, the main course of the trip for me. I chose to continue on westward for dessert, which was an Emirates flight to Dubai. It was a 7.5 hour flight. Interesting that along with weather information on the screen was also the prayer times for all any Muslims that were on the flight. And then my dessert was soon in sight. The Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest building in the world. I think it's 160 stories, 1,700 meters tall. And I opted for the big ticket at the top. The sky view, the view at the 148th floor. And it just worked out that I was able to be there for sunset. And it at the base of the Burj Khalifa is the largest shopping mall in the world. And as luck would have it, my taxi driver, Kareem, I think Kareem is the name of the ride share, dropped me off probably at the farthest point of the shopping mall, but I made it in time to get on my elevator ride up to the top. What's fun is they project the information about where that elevator is, so you know that this one is at the 105th floor, on its way to the 125th, where you have to hop off and get onto another one to go all the way up. The ride from this level to the 125th floor was 1 minute, and I could barely perceive 125th. I was probably floor 3. I'm not sure where it was, but it was over 100 floors in 1 minute, and it was so smooth that you could hardly tell that you were moving. And then hopped off at 148. Got some amazing views. Yes, we are way up there. And I just enjoyed people taking pictures of pictures. And then a final shot of the trip is the last sunset. Beautiful sunset, enhanced by an incredible amount of smog. One of the smoggiest places I've ever been. It didn't bring tears to my eyes because I was happy, but that's okay. Yeah, and that's it. That's the trip. What I'm going to show you next is I'm going to play a 6-minute video, give you an idea of what this place looks like at night. And I'll be happy to take any questions you've got, or we can just have a chat. I've got some memorabilia and stuff over on the table over there. Happy to have a look. Incense, there's the collection of all of the currencies that I used while I was out and about, and other things that you'll recognize from the presentation. Thanks for coming along. Oh, God. Okay. Okay, let's just go do it. Um, okay, guys, I'm gonna pause this right here because I just got word that Yannick can join us. Let me just, I'm not sure how to set this up. Let me just go. Be back.
Recording in progress. I love it.
Yannick,
Hello.
hi, I just wrapped up the presentation and the best part was the photograph of you and I in front of the costumes
Oh, good. So everything went well?
everything went great. Yes.
If I would have known, I would have come in earlier, but you said 7:25, so I
I
tried to be.
somehow I thought I was going to go long, but I ended up going short. Imagine that.
Oh, how are you?
I'm good. Are you at
And
home?
how are th yes. It's 7 o'clock in the morning, so yes. I'm going in about an hour.
Awesome.
How is Chautauqua going?
Stuff is going great. We just had last night there was a blues program. Morgan Freeman has got a blues group that played in front of the Chautauqua Symphony Orchestra.
Oh, that's too good.
We have
Good.
Pilavolus on Sunday and Monday,
Oh, I love Palopolis.
and then the ballet school just wrapped on August 12th. And it was
Mhm.
ballet that weekend as well. Yeah, so they were here with the Houston Ballet on Saturday, and then the students did their gala on Sunday.
So who was in your presentation? Who attended?
We had Walt Goodridge, who was my guide on Saipan, joined us to tell us about the interesting connection with Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart spoke here at the amphitheater back in the 1930s. She landed her plane on the golf course.
Oh my
And
gosh.
um, uh, Walt is a bit of a history buff himself, and the locals on Saipan are convinced that Amelia was held prisoner in a Japanese jail there until she.
Really? I didn't know that.
The things you learn when you travel around the world. Yeah, it's legend there on Saipan. It's not, I don't think, accepted by most of the historical community, but there are a lot of folks there that were eyewitnesses at the time. So, um, yeah.
I've just been in touch with Washington Ballet because Edward Liang, who is their new artistic director as of last year, um, has come into sort of a mess of an organization. And it's veered so much from its purpose and gotten itself so much into debt that he's furiously trying to dig out before he hits the bottom. And he's been a longtime friend of mine, and so they're going to have the 50th anniversary of the company in 2 years, and he wanted to talk to me about things. And I've talked to him before about it, but I said, because I said, I can tell you what the company was when it was originally set up. I can tell you about Mary Day. I can tell you about Chusan. I can tell you about the first 10 years of the company. But beyond that, I said it's a shame because the company was so special and it's veered so far away from what its purpose was, which was to give the local audiences, not the international audiences, but the local audiences in Washington, the people who live in the Northeast and live there all the time and are part of the administration, the same way that there was the Folger and National Symphony and Arena Stage. And so I tried to make him aware of its local origins and its local uh, connection to Washington and its uniqueness. Then that's how it had been set up. And he's a very smart person. And he said, but how can I get it back to that? I said, you can't. I said, you can make it individual and you can make it but it's best not to get caught up in the past of it too much because it's veered too far away from. Julie Kent tried to turn it into a mini American Ballet Theater. Septime used it as a vanity project for himself. It's veered so far off course from what it was intended to be that I don't think you can get it back. I think you have to reinvent it and taking into consideration the principles where it was established. So I left it at that. But I said I would do anything I could to help him because he's a lovely person and the company is a wonderful company. So.
That we were host to them in 2000, I'm sorry, 2022.
Uh-huh.
It was
Julie Kent at that point. Yeah.
Yep. And it was a tragic day. That was the week of the attack on Salman Rushdie. But
Oh,
the thought
that
was
happened did that happen at your place?
that was on the stage of the amphitheater.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That was I was supposed to do an overnight that night to do a lighting focus for the Saturday performance of the ballet, and then it happened we ended up canceling the programming on that Friday. But the thought was, you know, everybody persevered, needed to come together after 9/11, and did the same thing. And the amazing thing was, it was a bit of a panic. I think Chris will remember this, or A1, from the time we got the message that we needed to have a microphone ready because administration needed to make an announcement during intermission. And the great news was that Rushdie was alert and actually cracking jokes from his hospital bed. So it was a good thing that we went on with the performance. It was also one of the ballets had a huge number of students from the ballet school perform in it. So it was a good thing that it went on for everybody.
Well, after you're doing an unofficial work at Chautauqua, or are you employed again?
Nope, this is just something I wanted to share with my friends and folks that weren't doing Facebook, and it's just a fun project.
Good. But the work you're doing at Chautauqua right now is just ad hoc, or is it?
It's a little bit of moral support. They had a bumpy ride at the beginning. The person that was to take my place had a personal emergency and resigned 2 days before the season started. So used with a lot of phone work, but a lot of great staff that were here and stepped up and did a pretty amazing job. So it's been fun I wanted to come back and do this and just be here for the end of the season.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to go off and teach ballet again for the 15 millionth time. So you take good care of yourself, and I'm always just a message away.
Okay. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. All right. Bye.
Bye.